What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall markets. I want to talk about why next week is going to be very big for NIO, as earnings should be coming up very soon. Not to mention why tomorrow is going to be a crazy day, as we have Nvidia's earnings as well. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, let's talk about the markets. NIO came down exactly as I predicted yesterday. I was expecting it to come down to about 4.25, and so far we're continuing to dip. However, despite the bearish looking daily candlestick and despite the fact that we could dip a little bit more from here, I just want to say that whether or not we get a big dump depends on Nvidia's earnings. That's going to be a very, very big factor for tomorrow as soon as the market closes. Now, keep in mind, there's a double bottom right now. If we make a higher low compared to this low and the low fours, we could still see a bounce for the markets and NIO. I also want to add that SPY, the QQQ, and many others have falling wedges that are developing, which is a good sign for bulls as we approach tomorrow. But I'll give you guys more insights about this in the next couple of minutes. Let's talk about NIO news and I'll break down what's happening with these charts. So the first thing I want to mention is that as far as NIO is going, there's not really much of a change in our data. The price-price ratio is starting to slow a bit, so NIO is beginning to lose a little bit of strength. We do tend to be green about 55% of the time on Wednesdays, which is not too bad. And we tend to see more volatility around noon, not to mention the second to last hour of the day. Now, as far as NIO is going, the price forecast has been more optimistic, at least thus far, from different analysts. And we'll see if this continues. We need to see them give us more insights for their earnings, which should be possibly on March 4th. We'll see if the date changes. For now, I think that's when it could be coming. And what they announce could be very important for their guidance and their overall sales. I'll be listening to see what they tell us about this quarter. They're going to give us insights about what we should be expecting, not to mention how things are looking, at least moving forward. For now, with earnings coming out, get ready for some more volatility for the stock. There might be a big move once earnings are released, so I hope they do well. They had a very, very strong fourth quarter, so that could help the share price improve. But we'll have to wait until next week. So for now, we'll be very, very patient. Besides that, I'm not seeing anything else too crazy, at least for NIO. The market was very mixed today. Some sectors, especially in health, were in the green, but we start to see tech stocks in the red, so just keep that in mind. And then on top of this, looking at the ET9, we did see NIO in a very, very critical place. The ET9 is very important for their luxurious brands, getting those sedans out there, and it's going to be very, very bullish, at least moving forward. But for the short term, we're going to be reacting to Nvidia. So keep in mind, tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, February 26th. There's no significant data coming out, just some crude data in the morning. Besides that, I'm not seeing anything else that's too crazy. We have a couple of Fed speakers like Barkin, but that's pretty much it. Nothing else is too insane. But then we have this news right here. So we have Nvidia's earnings tomorrow. We have lows in the morning, then Nvidia aftermarket close alongside Snow, AI, and Salesforce. Looking at Nvidia, keep in mind that we're going to be listening to see what they tell us about their overall estimates. They are very important and one of the leading designers of graphics chips. What's important about that is they help develop the GPUs, which are very, very common. And then they're also going to give us a little bit more like insights about how it's looking. We're expecting them to beat expectations as they typically do. So I hope that ends up being the case. This quarter, analysts are expecting revenue to grow about 73.5% year over year to about $38.34 billion. That's also a bit of a decrease compared to the same quarter last year. Adjusted earnings come out to about 85 cents per share. Nvidia is known for beating on these. If you look at their total revenue, it's been continuing to grow every quarter. So I would love to see if that they could beat expectations. That would be very, very good. And then when it comes to our estimations, we're hoping for a very, very strong guidance because NIO, which is once again very important for the graphics chip segment, it's going to give us a lot more insights about how this is going to look like. And there's been a lot of fears right now amidst inflation, amidst tariffs. NVIDIA has to come out and really help to offset that. They have to help tell different people that, hey, things are still going to be fine for their business. If they could see a nice amount of growth, that could be a very, very big factor, at least for this market. So I'll be watching that very, very carefully. Investors in the processors and graphics chips segments have steady hands going into earnings, and they have very, very high expectations. So I'm seeing that we see a nice amount of growth. Keep in mind that typically when NVIDIA has its earnings, we tend to be green the majority of the time. There were some instances over the last few years where we saw some red, but the overall results, at least as of the last couple of earnings, it's typically in the green. It does not usually dump that much. So, for example, if we go back to Q1 of what we saw in 2023, this was up about 5%, 4% for Q2 2023. Q3 saw a little bit of a decrease in Q4, and then Q1 of 2024 up until Q2 have been quite good, at least for the share price. So for now, the majority of the time, we do tend to see green, at least for them. We'll see how that goes. There's also been some talk about Donald Trump's tariffs. He did mention that he wants to impose the tariffs and go forward with the Chinese and Canadian ones. Keep that in mind. It could be affecting prices. So that being said, what do I see for the share price? I do want to warn you that NIO has a left shoulder ahead than a right shoulder here. If we don't hold 4.25, I'm expecting this to dip to about 4.14. I would love to see this overtake 4.3 for the bounce. Otherwise, we could be looking for a rebound and a dip just temporarily for tomorrow. Now, the big move that comes to NIO is also going to depend on earnings, despite the technical weakness on this. If there's a little weakness, at least approaching NVIDIA's earnings, we'll see if NVIDIA causes this to bounce or dump. That could have a big effect on the whole market. So even if we do dip a little bit more, we could still try to invalidate the head and shoulders if we get a big bounce. Even if we see some downside, earnings will be the next big factor. For now, there's a bearish setup on NVIDIA. I'm sorry, not NVIDIA, on NIO, excuse me. But that's going to depend on NVIDIA's earnings. So we'll see how that ends up going. I do think that the market's going to most likely try to bounce depending on how things go. We might see a move like this for NIO, a little bit more downside, but then we could be looking for a bounce after NVIDIA announces its earnings. But with the head and shoulders, that could still lead to, later downside, maybe after earnings or before earnings. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm looking for a move like that. There might be a little bit of a dip coming before it tries to bounce. What's good about SPY is that we have a falling wedge approaching NVIDIA's earnings. If NVIDIA does relatively well, we could be looking for a breakout back up to about 602 to 605. If we lose 589, then we're looking for the gap fill for 585. I'm hoping we get a bounce. Right now, we have a falling wedge, so there's a good chance it ends up panning out. For the QQQ, we have a falling wedge as well. If we break past this imbalance around 520, we're looking for a big pump. If we lose support at 508, we're looking for a dump. So we'll see which way this goes as we look a little bit more, as we have a nice setup. The Russell 2000, we want to break 218 to pump. If we lose 214, we dump, but it is looking like it has promising potential. ES could be trying to retest this trend line that has upside potential off this falling wedge. If we lose support at 59.50, we could be dumping a lot more, but I'd favor that it might try to bounce for 6,000. If we get a good report tomorrow, it depends on NVIDIA's earnings. NQ is also maintaining this falling wedge. If this holds, we're looking for a bounce to above 21,500. If not, there could be a bigger dump. For Bitcoin, I want to see this reclaim 90,000, so we'll see how this goes. NVIDIA has a potential inverse head and shoulders right here. Is a left shoulder heading to the right shoulder. If it bounces again, that's going to be very, very promising, at least for the share price. So give this some time. Tesla's on a bit of a downtrend, looks very, very weak, but we're at the lower trend line of support. I would like to see Tesla rebound first before it continues to decline. I hope we get a little rebound tomorrow off NVIDIA's earnings. We're at support right now. If not, it's not looking good. But either way, I do see us coming down to fill the gap around 275 to 250. We could bounce first and then dump, or we just dump from here, so keep that in mind. Apple's dipping a bit. We'll see if we get a bounce and continue to push for the 250 area or not. If we lose 245, we're looking for a dump. If we break 250, we're bullish. We'll give this some time to develop. For SoFi, we're rejecting right here. We'll have to see if we break past 14 or not. If not, we're looking for 13.5. For Coin, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We'll have to see if we can break past 216 to 224. We could push for 220. We'll see if we reject here, but I do see a small bounce. I think that Amazon may try to push for 215 plus. Meta may try to rebound for essentially 674, excuse me. And then Microsoft has a falling wedge. If this breaks, we're looking for basically 402 to 405 as our potential targets. And then Google may also try to bounce back above 180 if we get that bounce. So for now, the bulls have an edge going into tomorrow, but it depends on NVIDIA's earnings. As far as NIO goes, there might be a little downside coming because of this head and shoulders, but we could be looking for a rebound at least later on. There might be a small dip here, and then NVIDIA's earnings could cause either this to bounce or react the other way. We'll see about that just to be safe, but keep that in mind, guys. With that being said, get ready for NVIDIA's earnings. NIO might see a little bit of downside approaching it, but then we'll see if that causes a big bounce or not for the markets. I see potential in this nonetheless. Anyways, thank you for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.